This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag. Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag is Baton Rouge's longest running and best television show. Who would have believed that?
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. Remember, it all starts at Breck. Now, your host, Lee Feinswag.
Well, truly one of the coolest stories of 2017 was the Houston Astros winning the World Series. One of the coolest moments of 2018 is that Will Harris, a member of that team, a guy from Slidell who played at LSU, is on Sports 225. And he is a perfect example of how life does not give you a blueprint, especially in athletics. And that's a fair statement, isn't it?
Very fair statement.
When you came from Slidell, and we're talking long enough ago so that you're a seasoned veteran, you were an infielder who happened to pitch a little bit. Isn't that correct?
I was. I mean, I pitched my whole life. You know,
Yeah.
me and my older brother were always kind of the bigger guys on the team, and usually those guys get put on the mound. And so.
And his older brother Clay was also an LSU baseball player who had a pro career.
That's right. So, but when I got to LSU, I was a two-way guy. I did both in fall practice. But we had a lot of upperclassmen then. A lot of names. Jake Tompkins, Bo Pettit, a lot of these guys that were established, and so my role pitching kind of never really materialized, and was put in the infield and played in the infield and had my moments where I was a serviceable player at LSU, but for the most part was.
But you played, if I recall right, first base and third base?
I played first for 3 years, and then my senior year I played third.
Yeah.
But my senior year, Smoke came up to me and was like, hey, we may need you to pitch some this year. We lost a lot of guys to the draft. Greg Smith left, got drafted high.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Detterman decided not to come back. He went to medical school, which for him was a great decision. But for us, it left us lacking a few arms. And so I kind of stepped in and fought through some elbow problems, but impressed a few professional scouts enough to give me a shot in pro ball.
As a pitcher.
As a pitcher.
And so, as an aside, I graduated from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, and a million years when I went there, it was a big-time baseball program. And one of the guys I went to school with was an outfielder who one time in a meaningless game came in to pitch. His name was Dave Stieb, who I know you know the name from Major Leagues. And he threw 9 pitches, struck out the side, never pitched before or after, and then got drafted as a pitcher and then had an unbelievable career, mostly with the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's not unprecedented, but still,
Right.
Kinda.
No, it's not. A funny story, when I got called up with my second stint in the big leagues, and I was with Arizona, a high school summer ball teammate of mine, Tony Sipp, who's been a long-time big league reliever and is with the Houston Astros right now, the GM came to him and was like, hey, we're calling up this kid, Will Harris. I know you play with him. And Tony's first reaction was like, yeah, man, he can really hit. And so Tony had no idea that I was pitching. He thought I was coming up to play, be in the lineup that next day. But we were in the bullpen and have shared a lot of time in the bullpen over the last, 6, 7 MLB seasons.
Have you gotten many at-bats? It's a stat I forgot to look up doing my research.
So I've gotten one.
One at-bat?
In the big leagues. It was in an interleague game in San Diego in 2015. And at the time, I was going through a long line of elbow problems that I've had in my career. But I was pitching through it, and I was battling through it. So I grab a bat, I grab Hank Conger's helmet, and A.J. Hinch, our manager's like, hey, don't swing. And at the time, I was kind of mad because I wanted to go hit. But my elbow was hurting so bad, I was like, it's better that I don't because I don't want to get hurt. So I got in the box, and Norris was catching. I said, hey, man, I'm not swinging, so just don't hit me. And so 3 fastballs down the middle later, my only at bat, and then in a punch out. But I've been waiting around for another one. AJ knows. So the next day, I went on and I printed out my college stats of my sophomore year, the one good year I had hitting, and I highlighted all my numbers and I put it on AJ's desk and was like, "Don't ever tell me not to swing again." It was kind of like a joke.
But but most, as a relief pitcher, in your role, it's just so unlikely that you'd even get the opportunity in today's specialization.
Right.
But what a shame too, though.
Yeah.
Because you're a big, strong boy with a good stroke.
We used to take batting practice when I was in the National League. The pitchers hit in spring training all the time just to kind of, kill some time.
Yeah.
And you know, and I had some days where I could impress and turn some heads. But hey, I'll be the first guy to tell you, hitting is incredibly hard, and I have a lot of respect for what those guys do. And I think that, in a way, has made me a better pitcher, because I don't give them as much credit, because I know how hard it is to stand in that batter's box and try and hit guys that are really good. And so it just kind of changes my mentality of, I go right at guys. I'm not afraid, because I know even a fastball right down the middle, it's a hard pitch to hit.
It really is. Well, Will Harris from Slidell, played at LSU, won the World Series this year with the Houston Astros. Got a lot of questions for him, but we'll take a break. When we get back, we'll start with, what's it like to win a World Series? When every kid who ever played baseball dreams of such a thing, and so few people get to do it. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
See that dog lover? About to unleash the terror hound on these friendly, unsuspecting canines? Well, I'm the human dislike button, and I see it too. Easy there, Cujo. Taking part in a dog socialization program at a shelter or pet store can help nip this problem in the bud. And no matter how well socialized your pet is, cleaning up the little rays of sunshine they leave in their merry wake is your responsibility. To learn more about me, go to breck.org/HDB.
Back on Sports 225, talking baseball with Will Harris, the former LSU pitcher who was part of the Houston Astros World Series winning team. So, people know I don't do too much homework, but I did a little bit, because I was trying to remember that World Series had so many unbelievable games, and it all was a blur. So I went back and looked at each box score, and correct my memory. You pitched in 3 games.
I did.
Like 2, 5, and 6. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. 2, 4, and 5, I believe.
Yeah. And in 5, you had a hold, which was a pretty unbelievable game, if memory serves.
Yeah, that was pretty good. My best outing was probably game 2. I came in, we were down 3-1, and I threw the 7th inning. And actually, my boy Bregman booted a ball at short on a ground ball that Bellinger hit. And so I had a guy on first, nobody out. We're down. I mean, with the bullpen that they had, 2 runs can be 5. If you give up another run, the game may be over. And I battled back in the inning, and Bellinger ended up making it to third with 1 out. And I punched out Peterson and Barnes in back-to-back to keep the game at 3-1. We go on to score 2 runs in the top of the 8th inning and go on to win it in extra innings. And so it was not only that, but my most memorable, because it was my first outing in the World Series. And so it was
yeah, well, you're probably well past the point of being nervous going into a game, right? You warm up, you get the call, send them in, you jog in there, you warm up, you pitch. It's your job. But going into the World Series,
it's different.
Yeah.
It's different. I mean, it's totally different. I mean, even go back to ALCS, Yankee Stadium, and that atmosphere.
Yeah.
There's more anxiety leading up to the game, just because you want to perform well for the other guys. You don't want to be the guy that drops the ball.
Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't know how you don't know how you're going to react your first outing in a World Series.
Can you
leading up to the
can
game,
you control the adrenaline? For
can you
example?
control it? And what I learned about myself, and I remember sitting around having a beer after the game with family. I was like, you know what, guys? Like, I was really nervous. I'll be the first guy to tell you, in the bullpen during the game, because you don't know what's going to happen. You have no idea how the game's going to play out. And so,
right.
And I knew I was going to pitch that game, because I'd warmed up every single game of the postseason, every single game. And I wasn't getting in some, but I knew that eventually I was going to pitch a lot in this World Series. But when the phone rang and it was me to get up and throw the 7th inning, when I started my routine in the bullpen, it was as normal as it's ever been.
Yeah.
And when I ran out, they did God Bless America in the 7th inning, and I stopped in the outfield to do it, and I kind of got a panoramic view, and I remember thinking, like, this is pretty cool. And I wasn't nervous at all. All of that had kind of gone away, and I just was doing what I've been doing for a long time. And then the inning, and I made a lot of good pitches that inning, and I don't think I really made a mistake. I made a lot later on in the World Series, but just it's just kind of one of those things where I performed well at the most tense moment I've ever had. And I was kind of like, not to say pat myself on the back, but I was proud of myself when the game was over, of like, hey man, like you actually like held up today.
No, but then one of your middle appearance, you had a tough outing, but then your final appearance, you you were good. But so take me to the end of the last game when you're sitting there and you know that you're finally going to win the World Series. What must that be like? And were you out in the bullpen?
So I was out. I was out in the bullpen, and at that moment, Charlie Morton was rolling. He ended up closing the game out, but Charlie Morton's rolling. We got a 4-run lead. Verlander and Keuchler warming up in the bullpen, so it's like Cy Young Award winner, a guy who's pitching the best he's ever pitched in his life on the mound.
Pretty
so
sure
I'm
I'm
looking
done for the
around,
day.
I'm like, how am I going to get in this game right now? I've warmed up every game up to this point, and I was like, I don't know if today's the day. And so anyway, it's just rooting them on and going pitch to pitch, and you really stay in the moment as well as you can. You try and go through each hitter. You know the scouting report so well. It's the 7th game, so there's nothing that's left out there that you don't know how you would pitch a guy, and you're going pitch to pitch with Charlie, like, hey man, throw him the slider here, or stay with your heater right here, and you're just kind of staying in the moment. And when that final out kind of hit, you're like, holy smokes, we did it.
Yeah.
Just kept that thought just kept coming to my mind of like, man. Like,
Do you remember what you did, like who you ran to or what you?
We just sprinted out, and me and Luke Gregerson were kind of like stride for stride. He's been a buddy of mine. We played 3 years in Houston together, and just screaming, man. Just like, we did it. We freaking did it. And just, it was a surreal moment. I never let myself, when I was in high school, I never thought about playing at LSU. It's just kind of something that materialized. When I was at LSU, I never thought about playing professional baseball. It's just something that kind of materialized into that, And when I made it to the big leagues in 2012, I never thought it was really something that I could do until maybe the week before, when I was like looking at my numbers and like, man, like, I got a shot here. And then it materialized into that. So winning the World Series was not something that I really thought about that much until we got deep into that postseason, and it's like, hey man, like, maybe this could happen for us, And then when you get to that far in Game 7, you're just like, wow.
Well, a couple of key things happened. I mean, not the least of which was picking up Verlander, who you mentioned earlier, and you coming off the disabled list.
Yeah.
You were hurt, came off in mid-August, right? Thank goodness. I mean,
Yeah, that was in the plan. AJ, when I went on the DL, he was like, "Hey, we want to make sure you're right when you come off." It was my right shoulder, and he said, "But you need to come off in time where you can get some innings under your belt before the postseason starts, because he's like, you and I both know you're going to throw a lot, and that's going to happen."
Yeah.
And so it all kind of worked out. Where when I came off the DL, I was able to get 5, 6, 7 outings or something like that in September, and then when the postseason started. I felt good. I felt real good, and pitched against Boston, threw against the Yankees, gave up the homer to Judge in the postseason. Was kind of my only really blip on the radar, but it was, a pitch that I executed well. It just was the wrong pitch at the wrong time.
That's a big, strong boy.
Yeah, he's a big guy, man. He's, it's kind of tough when running up to the MVP.
I mean, some of the guys who you face, like I just imagine like pitching against Yasiel Puig, just the physical specimen that he is, thinking. Just for example, and then Judge at 6'8" is he?
Right.
Unbelievable. Will Harris, of course, is telling us about winning the World Series for the Houston Astros. When we get back, we'll ask him about some of his teammates who had some pretty remarkable seasons, and we've still got to hear his travel log through baseball and how he got to where he is. Don't go anywhere.
All right.
All right. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
You see that? That's a trash can. It's a special place where trash goes. Not here, not here, not here. Is that a diaper? The best part about the special place called Trash Can is there's not just one. There are trash cans everywhere. I'm the human dislike button, and I believe in you. I believe in your ability to find a trash can. To learn more about me, go to breck.org/HDB.
All right, we're back on Sports 225 talking baseball with Will Harris of the Houston Astros. The three guys, George Springer was just unbelievable, and Jose Altuve, his whole last 2 seasons. But this year, when you look at that little guy and what he's done, and then, of course, you're older than him, so you weren't LSU teammates, but another LSU guy, Bregman had such an unbelievable season, and maybe through into Game 5 might have had a chance to be MVP of the series.
Yeah, it's tough. When you have a team full of superstars like we do. It's amazing you mentioned those guys, and you didn't even mention Carlos Correa's name, and he could be.
And just as an aside, when you got there, like you just finished your third year.
Yes.
And so you got there right as things started to turn, because this was a 40-win franchise.
Right.
And they came out publicly and said, "Bear with us. We know we're bad. We know what we're doing." Mm-hmm. And everybody bought into it, strangely enough, and they were right.
Yeah, they were right, and I'm hoping that's not the blueprint for baseball. I think now for a lot of teams, because it's going to get real top heavy if everybody tries to go to that model that we just kind of pulled off. But I mean, you never know. But yeah, we have a team, and you mentioned George and and Jose and Springer. I mean, and Correa and Bregman. These guys. I mean, everybody gets along in our clubhouse, which is crazy with the amount of superstars that we have, and the amount of talent. You hear stories of egos and stuff like that getting involved, but with us, it never was like that. When we traded for Justin Verlander, one of the biggest names in all of baseball, especially in pitching over the last decade, and he comes in and fits right in.
Yeah.
Nothing. It was like he had been there all year long. I think really said something about the culture that we had, and I can't speak for other teams that have won championships, but with us, it just felt really different in spring training this year, and you could feel it. I mean, bringing in like Carlos Beltran and Brian McCann, these guys that are just as good as gold, and both have Hall of Fame resumes.
And I would think McCann would be a really settling influence on any problems that you might have.
100%. Brian, is me and Brian are the same age. We're cut from the same cloth. We grew up playing in the same tournaments, so we kind of hit it off right away. And spending a lot of time with him. Nobody wanted to win more than him. And he was so beat up physically in the postseason. I mean, to the point where he couldn't straighten either knee, but caught every game, and didn't make excuses, and studied film. And really, you ask any of our starting pitchers, like, he's the difference. Yeah. They will all put it on his shoulders as to why we won.
Our catchers are amazing, right?
And he gets none of the love, It's like, because that's how catchers are.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guys you mentioned, obviously, are incredibly talented and are going to be with this organization hopefully for a long time. But they're all going to make a lot of money one day, and it's tough to keep them all.
That's good. Where are you contract-wise?
I have one more year this year. I have a team option next year. So, this being my fourth year in Houston, if they happen to pick up the option for the fifth year, that would just be lagniappe. To say that I could play 4 years in Houston, as close to my home as any Major League Baseball team, when my kids are young, is something that, can't put a price tag on.
No, and not only is your wife from Western Louisiana, but you were born in Houston, right?
I was.
Because it says on the bio,
Yeah, a lot of people are like, hey, man, a Texan. I'm like, well, I've been living in Louisiana since I was 6, but.
But that gives me an opportunity, because the way it's come full circle. But when you left LSU, just tell people all the places you've been.
Yeah, so I've.
All right, and don't go anywhere and just settle in now.
Yeah. I've. Washington, North Carolina, Modesto, Tulsa, back to Washington, to Tucson, back to Modesto, back to Tulsa, Colorado Springs, then Denver, Arizona, Reno, Sacramento.
Did you ever count up how many minor league teams there were? And how much total seasons?
No, I've seen a lot of minor league cities, and unfortunately, nothing against the great people of Modesto, but that's where I spent most of my time, and it's not a tourist destination these days. So
Modesto, California.
That's it. We were the nuts.
Well, our friend Chad Durbin, who has been on the show and played with the Phillies when they won the World Series, and he won. I think he told me some weird number like. He's won 6 or 7 minor league championships. On one hand, something he's very proud of.
Right.
On one thing,
Yeah.
It's like, so when he finally got to where he was, just like you, he was older, but you probably appreciated it more than the average guy, knowing what you went through.
Yeah, I had a lot of injuries, and I kind of missed 3 years right in the peak ages of 25 to 27. So, I had a couple of elbow surgeries, and I basically had to restart my career back. That's what I said. I went back to Modesto. I kind of graduated from Modesto, got to AA, got hurt, and then had to go all the way back and start all over again. And so I remember, I was 27 years old, in high A ball, which I'm 5 years older than anybody on the team. My wife is pregnant, and I've got like a 6 ERA. And I'm like, man, this is it. This is how it's going to end for me. So I go to spring training the next year, and I tell the farm director, I'm like, hey, if I'm not going to make a team, I'd like to go back home because my wife's getting ready to have the baby in the next few weeks. And Jeff Bridich, who's now the GM of the Rockies, was like, no, Will, you're going to make a team. You're going to Tulsa. Don't worry about it. And, fast forward 5 months, I was in the big leagues. So it's kind of, you never know what was going to happen, to rewind. And then now to be be an all-star and to win a World Series and, have the 2 beautiful kids and wife that I have, it's like, man, I'm blessed. And you never know what's going to happen. Never know in this game.
Goes back to my original statement about the movement. I forgot to mention the All-Star part. Pretty good. All right, we got time for just a little bit of Sports 225. He's Will Harris of the Houston Astros and formerly of many, many minor league teams. Watch Bull Durham, and a lot of it's true, isn't it?
That's right.
There you go. We'll be right back for this last segment.
See that angry soccer mom over there? Giving the referee 2 earfuls? Well, I'm the human dislike button, and I see it too.
Rule Section 2, Part 1B, if a team does not display quality sportsmanship during the regular season, they may be barred from future sports opportunities.
Gotta remember, even though they make convincing canaries, referees are people too. It's important to keep your cool and use sportsmanship in every situation. I'm the human dislike button, but one thing I do like is following the rules. To learn more about me, go to breck.org/HDB.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, thanks to John Williams from JCW for directing. Go to sports225.com for all the showtimes and to see all the shows that are archived on the Sports 225 TV YouTube channel, which eventually will include this one, with Will Harris of the Houston Astros. Just to finish that last story, just tell us about how you got to the Astros when it happened.
Yeah, so I was with Arizona and had a pretty good year in 2013. 2014 was a tough time for me and my wife. We had a young daughter at the time, and I was getting sent up and down, back and forth from Phoenix to Reno, and I really thought that I deserved to be in the big leagues, and circumstances hadn't worked out for me. I was kind of the 26th guy on the roster per se, and I just felt like I was spinning my wheels. And us going to Reno and me finally deciding, hey, y'all move out here with me. We're going to be a family. If we're going to be in the minor leagues and grind this out, we might as well be together. And it was the best thing I've ever done, making that decision. And so the following offseason, my time with Arizona, what I had figured had run out. And I got a phone call from a buddy who worked in the front office of the Marlins and was like, hey, you're on waivers. I was like, oh, man. I was like, all right. It was like, you come off at 1 o'clock Eastern, noon Baton Rouge time. I'm like, all right. So an hour later, I get a phone call from the Astros telling me they had claimed me. So I call my wife, and I'm like, hey, if you could pick anywhere you wanted me to play, where would it be? And she said, well, I guess it'd be Houston. And I said, well, believe it or not, that's where we're going. And so it was kind of one of those weird stories of like, when you're on waivers, there's 29 other teams. You don't know if any of them are going to claim you. But to hand pick mentally the one that we wanted to go to, and then to have that actually come to fruition, and then to pitch well enough in 15, where I almost make an all-star team, and then well enough in 16 to make an all-star team, and then win a World Series in 2017, it's like, man, at what point is this thing am I gonna get on the backside of this mountain? But thankful to God every day, the opportunities, that I've had, and
and all indications are you guys should have a fabulous team again.
Yeah.
And you're healthy, fit, and ready to go.
Ready to go. Getting 33 years old, but I feel young. So.
When do you report?
I report February 12th. I just saw everybody this weekend at Springer's wedding, and so usually when these kind of things happen, you start to get flowing a little bit of like, all right, I'm ready to get back with the guys and get this thing going again, And this year we've added a couple of more pieces, which is crazy to think, and Garrett Cole and some of relievers that we've added. So, it's nobody's fault but our own.
There you go. Well, thanks for coming, man. This is awesome. I just have enjoyed this immensely, and it was a great story, the team, and a great story for Will Harris.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay. Hey, thanks for watching Sports 225. Good night.
Carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay. That's the site of my